Lenka, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'm looking forward to hearing your story.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. So, the way I gather it is you grew up in communist Czechoslovakia, you lived through the Soviet invasion, and then you fled to America. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Tell me, where did you grow up? What was your family like? What was your experience as a child?
I grew up in a small town in Czechoslovakia, and it was until the war finished, World War II, it was a German town under Germans, and a lot of people came there from Ukraine and other countries for work to serve Germans. But then probably in 1948 or so, it became under Czechoslovakia. So that was the town I grew up in. A lot of German people moved out of there because they told them, if you want to remain German, you're going to have to go to Germany now.
Yeah.
And so we stayed, and my grandmother was Ukraine. She married my German grandfather.
Yeah.
And that's how my family started.
Okay. And so remind me what year you were born in, if I may
I
ask.
was born in 1963.
Okay, so you were born in 63, and if I recall correctly, Czechoslovakia became communist in, I think it was 1948.
Correct.
So that would be, what, 15 years?
Yes.
About? So Czechoslovakia had been communist for about 15 years. What was it like growing up under that? What were the living conditions like for you as a kid?
Well, I think in 48 it was more like a socialist, but it was a hardcore socialist. But until 1968, it was easier,
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay. And prior to 1968, was your family religious?
No.
No, you weren't religious. What was life like in the communist Czechoslovakia with respect to religion? Because we hear a lot about how maybe they're repressive. Did you experience that as sort of a non-religious family, or were you?
Yes,
Okay,
we did. It was oppressed because the socialists and later on hardcore communists believe that to believe in God, you are not loyal to the party, to the government. And so to believe in God, you don't have enough wisdom to be loyal to the party.
That surprises me because you don't usually think of believing in God as a competition to government. I mean, religion's an institution that affects how we live our lives, but it's not as if I have to pick between, the president and God. God gave us the office of government. So you're saying the communists believed that you couldn't believe in both?
Correct.
Were there any religions that they tolerated or put up with?
No.
None?
None.
So I guess, was their official religion atheism?
It was actually taught in schools.
Atheism taught in schools.
It was, yes. It was that the motto or the oppression was explained in school as you have to be loyal to the party, and if you believe in God, you will make a lot of mistakes.
Wow.
Or you will head in a wrong direction.
Did you know anyone who was persecuted for their religious beliefs?
No, I didn't know
You didn't know
anybody
them personally?
prosecuted, but there were, like in small villages where my other grandparents lived, they tried to, secretly pray. And there were churches, they didn't get rid of churches or anything, but...
like state-sanctioned congregations that they would allow, kind of like in China? Is that the right idea?
Similar, yeah. And if you wanted to be priest or preach in a church, they would just slam some taxes on you, where they would make it impossible.
Did you guys celebrate, holidays, I would assume?
We did.
Okay, what kind of holidays did you celebrate in that
Well,
time?
that's the funny part, because we celebrated Easter.
They allowed that?
They did.
That's surprising. How did they care? What did you believe you were celebrating?
Bunny and eggs. I don't know.
Bunny and eggs. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't. As growing up as a kid, I didn't know why I'm celebrating it.
Wow.
It was never explained, but we celebrated. We celebrated Christmas, and so all the holidays that are, quote, based on religion beliefs, were celebrated.
But they co-opted them and took out their religious
I think
elements.
what happened was, again, before the socialism and communism came in, that was the traditions. And I think they quickly realized they have to keep going. Otherwise, there would be a big unrest or something like that.
Do you see a similarity today? Because I know a big cultural issue we have is the war on Christmas, so to speak. And I know in my experience, when I'm looking at the ads and the movies, Christmas is huge in the United States, Easter to a lesser degree, but it's still a thing. But they find a way to take Jesus out of it like every time. And if you ask the average person, the secular person, what is Christmas? They'll often say, oh, it's about family and togetherness and presents and Santa Claus and the elves. And it's like, well, it's not really what it's about. Is there a similarity there, even though we're not really a communist country?
I see the signs. I see the signs to oppress the religion. And again, that's why I think you see signs of some politicians offering free stuff. So they believe their
Yeah.
propaganda.
I want to get more into the economics of it because I know you kind of talked with me before the interview about some of your experiences, and that's what led to us to doing this.
Right.
And I want to get more into that. Focusing on your growing up period, school, what were they teaching you in school? I know you said atheism. What else?
Well, in school they told us that Soviet Union saved us from Germans and Americans
In World War II.
after at World War.
Now that's interesting because recalling kind of what happened in World War II, I can understand why they would say the Soviets saved you from the Germans, right? Because they
Correct,
participated
from the
in that.
Germans.
Why? How did they save you from the Americans? Because the Americans were on the same side as the Soviets against the Germans.
Correct. And if you look in the history, Americans actually were on that border there from the German side to protect the Czechoslovakians from Russians to going forward. I think the key to their propaganda was they didn't want to allow that Western world. There was that bourgeoism, how do you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they didn't want that.
What
And
did they
if
tell you about America specifically?
America specifically was about, they were capitalist. They have businesses that take advantage of their workers, and they try to get your money. And that's how I understood.
Did they
as a
paint the
kid.
United States as any kind of like a moral danger? Because I know today, coming out of Russia, we have this. I know Russia and the Soviet Union aren't quite the same, but we do still have from that part of the world this idea that America is like this really secular, really immoral country, which to some degree I think might have a bit of a point. Was that the nature of it as well?
That was it. Yeah.
Okay.
That was. We grew up there. Well, when I was little, until later on, we were just taught that there's a lot of violence, there is a lot of poverty in Western countries, which America was one of those, because it was the largest country in the world, right? The most powerful one. So obviously the poverty and all that was always taught.
They said that America was unsafe. I'm just curious by comparison. Was your neighborhood safe? Was there a lot of crime in the communist Czechoslovakia, or was it actually pretty safe?
I tell you what, my grandfather was a policeman. He was like a chief of police.
Okay.
We never heard any crime. I don't believe there was no crime.
Right. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a job.
But they didn't publish it.
They didn't publish it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that actually rings really familiar because I know China doesn't publish their
Correct.
stats.
So-
I know Russia doesn't. So there's still that same
Yeah.
attitude.
I remember my grandfather had like files in a basement. And one time I went to basement, he didn't know. And then he took me out of there real quick. And that's where he had his files.
What do you think was in the files?
I kind of knew, or maybe he told me that it was files for his work.
All the good deeds
But
people are doing around
yeah,
town.
yeah, but
Yeah.
there's that. I'm sure there was a lot of crime.
Sure.
Actually, later on, I heard some stories that were really horrendous, but it was never published.
Well, crime's part of human nature. I don't think America would
Yeah,
claim to be
there
crime
is
free.
no such a.
But I don't think the Soviets or the communists can claim to be crime free.
No.
So you said that in school they taught you atheism. They taught you that America was evil, capitalist, out to get your money. We are capitalist. I think there's a little more to the story than just out to get your
Right.
money. What did they teach you about your own political system? What did they tell you about communism?
Well, we were not taught about communism. We were taught about the loyalty to Soviet Union.
Okay.
The and we're talking even like a preschool.
Preschool.
Yeah, even in a preschool before, like the minute you had interactions with teachers, you were taught to be loyal and grateful for Soviet Union.
Wow.
And so every public school, well, there were only public schools, everything was owned by government, but everywhere you went, you had a Russian president and Czech president, and then you had Lenin.
Yeah.
Those were the three pictures, and everywhere you went
Up on the wall.
on the wall. And Czechoslovakian flag and Russian flag.
You weren't even part of Russia, and yet they had that flag up on the wall. That's crazy to me. So it sounds like the propaganda was actually pretty thick, coming at you from the age of preschool. Did you have any sources or people contradicting it, telling you that what you were hearing at school was wrong?
I did. It was my grandmother that came from Ukraine. And as I went to school and we started to learn, loyalty to Soviet Union, I was a very naive little girl. I believed everything they told me in school, and I celebrated the Soviet Union. But sometimes I would come home and my grandma would be like, "That's not how it was."
What made her specifically such a firebrand? Because I'm assuming she could get in trouble for that if that got out.
Oh, she could get in a lot of trouble
Yeah.
talking. But my grandma was from Ukraine. They're very outspoken.
Well, they're fighters, as we know today.
Yeah.
Right.
And so she didn't hide anything at home. Of course, she could get in a lot of trouble if she went up there.
Yeah.
But that's what got me in trouble too.
Got you into trouble. How
Yeah.
so?
Because sometimes I would repeat in school what I heard from grandma, and then within hours, the undercover police would show up at my father's work, take him to police station and interrogate him or question him if we talk about anything about against the government.
Even though it was your grandmother that said it. to
Correct.
question your dad.
I think when I went to school, I would just say to the teacher that that's not how it, that's not how it was.
Sounds like you have some guts yourself. You must have got it from
Well,
your
I guess I
grandmother.
got it from
Yeah.
grandma.
Wow. Do you remember how your dad reacted to this? Did he try to placate it, or was he also
I think my
really spunky?
father knew how to play it
Okay.
because they let him go home. Normally, they would keep you for maybe 3 days in jail as a punishment, and then if they had a proof, it would be a much larger punishment.
How do you play it in that scenario? Like, what do you do if you're in
Well,
your
he
dad's
just
shoes?
denied everything. Most likely, I don't know. Most likely, he probably told them that he doesn't know where I heard anything. But when he came home, he sure gave it to me.
He gave it to you. What did he tell you? Do you remember?
He told me not to ever open my mouth again, but
Yeah.
then he was more careful. But I did it again.
You did again.
I did. And so he went the second time, and then I was scared to talk.
Yeah.
I became a quiet child. It made me afraid to talk at all. I was very quiet.
Do you think a lot of other your citizens were also kind of experiencing that fear?
Oh, everybody did.
Everybody.
Because they were undercover everywhere. They were on the buses, they were in the stores. Anywhere you turn around, they were undercover. So if you open your mouth, like let's say you were on a bus, just say something against the government, just complaining, the first stop, they were already waiting there.
That's incredible.
It is.
Did you ever, I mean, with such a network of undercover agents, I mean, was there anyone you knew who you sometimes wondered, could they be, a spy?
I didn't.
You did.
I was young and I
Yeah.
had other problems.
But you learned, unfortunately, to keep your mouth shut. Just
I
to
did because of
protect
my
your life.
father. Yeah.
Yeah, and to protect your father.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because he was part of the police, which would mean he probably had something of a position of trust.
That was grandfather.
Oh, my bad. Okay, that was your grandfather.
Yeah.
What did your father do?
My father was an electrician.
He was an electrician.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, it helped him quite a bit because we'll probably jump into it soon. But he was an electrician working for a local company.
Okay.
And so to make more money, he started to work for cash
Yeah.
for people that were allowed to build a house or
Allowed
fix
to
it.
build a house.
Yeah, you had to apply.
You had to apply.
And it was hard, but usually those were doctors and engineers, and the higher class, but he made a lot of friends and learned to know people.
Yeah. Moving a little bit further along, kind of in the timeline. How old were you when the Prague Spring happened?
I was
And
5.
you were 5 years old. Do
Yeah.
you remember what it was like when? How did you first hear about the invasion? What was that like for you?
Well, the first time I heard about the invasion was when we were going to my preschool. My mom would go and we had like a man-made lake in a town, and we had to go over a bridge to my school. So we were going over there, and at that time my father was teaching me how to swim. So he said, if you want to swim, you have to float on water first and see if you can do it. And so that's what I was going through with my father at 5. And then when we were going over the bridge with my mom, I noticed there were 3 guys in a lake, and they were head down, and I was very curious how long they're gonna float on the water. Well, my mom knew exactly what's going on. I didn't. So she grabbed me and she started to cross that bridge really quickly. I had no idea what was going on, and I had no idea that they were dead soldiers.
Hmm. Were they Czechoslovakian soldiers? Or
I have no idea who
don't
they
know?
were, but reading up on a history later on, much later, obviously, I did hear there were a lot of accidents where the Warsaw Pact that was led by Soviet Union to invade our country, they had a lot of accidents, and so maybe they were in
Yeah.
accident. I don't know.
So as far as context is concerned, as a girl, what did you know about what was going on politically, and like, what do you know now? Could you explain why were they invading specifically?
Yeah, so the country was socialist, but the one of the representatives in the government went to Moscow in the spring of 1968, and he proposed that Czechoslovakia is going to be more opening up to free market and free trading, free speech, and possibly religion. And so he proposed that for Czechoslovakia. That was, I believe, in May or March
Okay.
of '68. And they didn't say much in Moscow. But then in August, as a matter of fact, tomorrow is anniversary of 1968
Wow.
invasion of Czechoslovakia.
Wow. August 20th, the Warsaw
Correct.
Pact invasion. I kind of brought some notes.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the Prague Spring was, who was this individual who went to Moscow to ask for more liberties?
It was Dubček.
Oh, okay. And he was maybe not so well received, and it led to an invasion.
Yeah, he was not received in Moscow because they didn't want us to have free, trade and free speech. Because free speech allows you as a citizen to talk against government, perhaps, right?
Yeah.
You can't allow that in a communist country.
Right.
And so there were a lot of trades and a lot of proposals that they didn't agree with. So they actually made it where Czechoslovakia needed to be stopped.
Wow.
And this is the way they chose to do that.
They chose. Do you see any parallels to what happened with Russia and Ukraine, or is it kind of a different scenario? I'm just curious.
No, because this was not about land
Okay.
or, something like that.
So that's not a comparison you would necessarily make.
No.
It looks to me from the outside a little bit like a parallelism, because it's the same Russia/Soviet Union invading another country. But you're saying the dynamic there's not quite an equivalency.
Yeah, it's not about the land, but it is definitely about we will rule what you are allowed.
Yeah. Did quality of life get affected in any way after the invasion? How did that change?
It did.
Yeah.
Because it actually increased the loyalty to Soviet Union
Even
again,
more so.
because we kind of lost. We lost that fight. And so that's when they started to put banners and everything, Soviet Union forever, you know?
So they really clamped down on you, it sounds like.
They did.
And by the way you described it, it sounds like the fighting was actually pretty close to your home if you had soldiers in your pond where you learned to swim.
It was very close to my home. And so that day, my mom, we got to the school and the school was closed. So my mom is like, okay, let's go through town. I'm not going back by that lake. So, you know, this way I don't look at them soldiers again.
Right.
And so she went through town, and little did you know, there were tanks, and one of them went straight through a hair salon.
Through the hair salon, like it demolished it.
Well, the front of it ended up inside the salon. And again, reading up on history, I don't think it was intentional. It was just these tanks, you know, it was a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And they didn't know where they're going and what to do. Even the ones that are from Warsaw Pact, I don't know if they were Polish or where they were from, but it was a extreme chaos. And some of them didn't even want to invade Czechoslovakia, but they were hired to do so.
Did it feel strange to you to get invaded not by the Soviets directly, but by your neighbors who'd been hired by the Soviets?
Well, I was too young to understand
young.
that.
Yeah.
I just saw the chaos, and a lot of people were scared. And I could see people, it was a total panic.
It seems like it happened pretty suddenly. I mean, your mom didn't even know the school was closed when she took you in.
Correct.
I think, did this surprise a lot of people, or did they kind of see it in the tea leaves?
It was an extreme surprise.
Extreme surprise.
So I believe it happened like overnight sometime on the 20th of August.
Yeah.
And so when you get up in the morning, some people got up earlier, heard it on the radio or something, but I guess that was not our custom to get up and listen to radio, I guess, at home.
Yeah.
You know, we were getting ready and going to school, and then Mama had to walk back to the work. So
Yeah.
that was pretty much, you know, we didn't know.
Yeah. Well, living under a socialist country, I have a funny feeling I know what the answer to this question is. But did the populace have any firearms of their own that they were using to fight people off, or were guns pretty limited in the hands of the people?
Oh, we had no guns.
Yeah, okay, that's what I would have thought. Do you think you could have maybe made a difference in
I believe so.
you believe so?
Yeah, because, I mean, it would go from two sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in reality, it
Now,
was a pretty
I have
quick-
to admit there were very few people that died. There were not too many people that died
Sure.
during that. But again, you know, how are you going to fight tanks and army with your bare hands?
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Yeah. I know we just had a primary election season pass, and I'm sure you've seen the headlines. Democrats are giving a lot of their primary victories to effectively communists or members of the Democratic Socialists of America whose goal is communism. How does that feel to you as somebody who grew up under that?
It's very scary.
Scary.
It's very scary because a lot of these, and some of them won their election, and they all are referring to Marxism. And it's extremely scary to me because Marx didn't succeed, but then in 1917, Lenin took over and his theories and made all these promises. That was Vladimir Lenin that made these, you know, we're all going to be equal and we're all going to have free things to
Free
come.
things. Sounds
Yeah.
like somebody I know over in New York. A certain
That,
Zoran
that
Mamdani.
would be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of things specifically were they offering you for free out of the utopia of communism in those days?
Well, after Lenin started with that communism, I believe it was post-World War II, they started to explain to people, we need your property. And if we get your property and your neighbor's property, we all going to put, I don't know, corn or wheat.
Did people resist
And
that
we
at all?
all, there were a lot of people that believe in them because it sounded good. We all going to produce for all of us, and we all going to take only as needed. Well, totally impossible.
Why is that
Because
so
I need
impossible?
more than you do, or you need more than certain things. I need a lot more than you do,
Right.
right? And it depends on your age. It depends on, I mean, it's impossible. They did take the properties, and everything became government owned.
Government. So they nationalized basically all the industries.
Everything.
And I know you were telling me earlier about shortages. So
Correct.
clearly it didn't work incredibly well.
Correct.
What were some of the things you would run out of and would have a shortage of?
Everything.
Everything.
Well, you had the supermarkets. Well, they didn't have supermarkets. You have the regular grocery stores. They were always short on something, whether it was flour or one day it was milk, then it was sugar. There was always something. Um, but you had it in medicine too. There were shortages of basic medicine because many of them were imported.
Did people put two and two together? Because it sounds like you're getting this stream of the Soviet Union has saved us. We love our comrades. Communism forever. Lenin's our hero, and we're going to have prosperity, unlike those poor Americans. But then in your own grocery stores, you don't have food. You don't have bread and milk. You're running out of medicine. I mean, did people feel the discord there, or did they have an optimism? Did they feel like the promises were going to be fulfilled? How did they reconcile those two things?
By the time I became a teenager or comprehended what's going on or even heard people talk more, people were very upset. And everywhere you turned around, somebody was complaining, oh, they have no bread. Don't even bother. Don't bother for this. Don't bother, don't. I remember there were people that would stand in line because they heard that I don't know if it's vegetables or something like that came in. It's supposed to come Thursday morning. So all these grandmas that didn't work, they were already retired, they would go and wait in line with hope to get it for their grandkids.
So with all these shortages and people having to wait in line for food, was there any kind of inside track that was going on? People trying to maybe share information with their friends and relatives about like where they can find the food that's maybe scarce?
Yeah, yeah. My aunt was a great example. She was a manager in a vegetable warehouse. And from that warehouse, they would distribute to small vegetable stores. And so during Christmas, she would get, I don't know, a couple boxes of bananas, maybe 10, 15 pineapples the most. But it was for 50,000 people to distribute, like to the little stores,
Why so few?
because it was too expensive to import. It was all hardcore US dollars payment to bring pineapple from Italy, or I'm not sure where they brought pineapple from, um, but on the other hand, if she had several pineapples for herself and maybe me, or bananas, she also knew the guy that distributed good quality meat because there was also a shortage. And unfortunately, she got caught exchanging good quality vegetables or the ones that are shortage with a guy who gave her meat.
So she, as the grocer, had access to the stores of the fresh vegetables, and she was trading that.
Correct.
What happened to her?
She went to jail.
Went to jail. How long? Was it like a pretty harsh sentence?
I believe it was 5 years, but she had 5 kids, so I think they let her out earlier. But that was a tough time for her.
5 years for trading vegetables.
Yeah.
5 years away from your kids. It's so distant from the world we live in today. And to think that people today are so ignorant about communism and what it means and what it looks like. And the fact that they're not going to deliver on these promises. Mom Donnie might have a grocery store that's free, but give him 50 years, give him everything he wants, he will have 5 pineapples in that grocery store.
Well,
And you'll go to jail if
I
you trade it.
agree. I agree with you, Tyler, but I think it's going to be much sooner. And I think we already hear them talking about what are you going to do if somebody comes and buys 15 pieces of whatever that might be and try to resell it. Well, this is what it was when I was growing up and when my aunt had a vegetable management job. And it creates a black market. It creates crookedness. My aunt meant well, but she had to, if she wanted a good piece of meat for Christmas, she had to give out a pineapple to a guy who has it. You don't think that's going to happen in New York or wherever they start these stores? It will create shortages.
Yeah.
And shortage means people are going to start opening their own free trade,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that.
Capitalism has a way of slipping up through the cracks, and no matter how much you try to pave over it, I think, in my opinion, and maybe I'm curious to hear your input on this, capitalism isn't perfect because it's run by humans, and nothing that humans run is going to be perfect because we're fallen beings, right? But it almost seems like capitalism isn't so much an invention of humans as it is just kind of a fact of reality. Even in the animal kingdom, we see predators and prey, and we see them existing in this equilibrium state of existing together and competing over food resources, and there's some trade-offs and there's some symbiotic relationships. It seems to me that you can't really get away from the capitalistic principle of give and take, of contribute value, receive value. And you could try to pave it over and say, no, the government owns literally everything, all the resources, and we will dole them out as we want. But somehow, even in the thickest of communist regimes, you still got people making trades in the background, and then a black market pops up, which is like the most capitalist thing ever.
You did. And I think, okay, I'm going to go a little bit more back to my aunt. And I heard you mention it's an animal instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, because if you give your dog, let's say, good piece of meat, and then you tell him, okay, that was enough for you, and now you're going to get this dry food. Your dog is not going to eat that food until you come back with more meat. You do it again, that dog's never going to eat dry food again. And that's the animal instinct. And okay, so in communism, where I grew up, we didn't taste the goods from Western country that much, unless we had that once a year pineapple. If you got it, it was just a few people. I know my daughter loved bananas, and my aunt accommodated, but I was one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
But if my daughter never tasted banana, she wouldn't crave it. But now, what we see today, everybody tasted banana. Everybody tasted pineapple. You take it away from them, you're going to have a problem. That's how I'm looking at it.
Maybe that's why even Marx admitted that there's really no way to have a communist revolution that is bloodless,
Correct.
because people aren't going to take kindly to that.
Yeah. Speaking of Marx, he also said, was it Marx or Khrushchev? They said, we don't have to invade America. They will destroy themselves from within. And that's how it was. And there were a lot of people complaining. But you see, there's one thing I learned. I worked in a diner up in New York. And the boss used to make trouble between the waitresses. And I told him, hey, why do you always make them upset? And he said, if they get along, they get in cahoots against me. And it reminded me the way I grew up. So if you make trouble between your citizens, they don't have enough energy to go against you. That's how I kind of looked at it.
That's a psychopathic, evil
Thank
approach
you.
to politics.
Thank you. I know.
That's disturbing.
That's
and so
why-
that was happening to your people on a national scale. But okay. So you say some people did complain though.
Yeah.
Despite the risks. Did you see people resisting in any way? Did you see any kind of underground movements or black markets?
There was no resistance.
No resistance.
But there was it created a lot of black market.
What kind of things were people buying on the black market? Just
Cigarettes, American cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
They were buying jeans.
Jeans. Why jeans?
We had no jeans.
You had no jeans.
Can you imagine a life without jeans, Tyler?
Almost everywhere I go, I wear jeans. What was the evil of jeans? Were they just too American?
They were Western.
They were Western, and you
Yeah.
can't wear blue jeans.
Correct.
Wow. So I mean, on the black market, you'd get them. I mean,
They used to have every time once in a while you would see a van, and in the back of the van there would be a guy, typically from Yugoslavia or somewhere out of the country, and they would have the Italian jeans. They were called rifle, and so you could buy those.
did you ever?
I
your hands on
didn't,
any?
because they didn't have children's sizes. It was
Okay.
usually men,
Sure.
and so even women they bought men's sizes. They didn't have women's sizes at all.
Did you ever get your hands on anything kind of contraband, Western, or illegal?
As a kid,
Yeah.
illegal. Not really, but we used to listen to a radio station.
And that wasn't That wasn't
Oh,
allowed.
that was really totally illegal.
Mm.
It was a radio station called the Free Europe, and it was based in England.
What kind of things were you hearing on the radio?
And they were talking about against communism.
I can see why they might not
Yeah,
appreciate that.
and they, believe it or not, they were playing like AC/DC or Def Leppard or music like Western music. We did not have that.
Hmm.
So I remember me and my friends, we used to get together and we had like a little cottage out in the woods, and we would get together and listen to this radio station, and we would have our cassette tapes and record the music. It was awful quality because it was a radio up in the woods, but we loved it. It was just something to do, and we were so excited because it was illegal.
It was a little rebellious.
Yes.
Yeah. But it sounds like you were also kind of you were taking part in maybe a little bit of a political movement. Did you perceive it as a political movement, or was it to you just rebel teen kind of stuff?
I think it was a rebel teen, but eventually you could see the politics through it,
Yeah.
but it's, yeah, you could see the politics, but it was much later.
So it sounds like some Western media, even clothing, was slipping through. People were starting to complain a little more. When did you realize I need to get out? Because you fled, right?
I fled. I realized it after all the shortages and everything, but that's economic, that's not a political things. But um, I knew people that wrote book, and they were so censored they couldn't publish the book because no matter what they said, it had to be proofread by government, and they saw something against the government. Even if you said, I bought a bread yesterday, they thought you're giving people a hint to do something bad against government. So everything was very censored. That was one thing. Second thing was once I had my daughter, she had a problem with her eyes, and I could not get help for her, and that bothered me a lot.
I thought you had free health care. I mean, what was the hang up with the medical system? It didn't go as they promised?
Yeah. We had a free healthcare. So free would be when you went to doctor, you didn't pay him then and there,
Yeah.
but it was a hefty withdrawal from your paycheck every month. And
So the free wasn't quite free. It was free after you pay for it with your exorbitant taxes.
correct.
Okay.
There was a special. I would probably compare it to Medicare,
Okay.
but it was for all.
Was there an aspect where you had to be in good standing with the party to get access to certain doctors, and if you weren't in good standing or you maybe broke some rules, you did not get access to the high quality care, or were they pretty fair minded with it?
Well, every doctor was a government employee. Everybody, doctors, nurses, stores, gas stations, and so doctors only got certain supply of medicine, and it was very little because again it was a centralized planning. So they plan for 5 years, and they deliver and distribute medication. So the doctors knew that they only get a very little painkillers, very little antibiotics. And so they saved it for themselves, for their family, for their friends.
Wow.
And you had to be really good friends to get access to that. And needless to say, they were paid by government. And so government had like a tables for if you're a doctor, how much you're allowed to make. And if you I worked in statistics in the office because everybody had to work, that was mandatory. And so they had a table for how much I'm allowed to make. And so the doctors, they just couldn't care less, right? Because, and plus, government told you what doctor to go to. So you couldn't say, oh, this eye doctor is not helping my daughter, I'm going to try someone else.
You were stuck.
That did not exist.
Now, I don't want to change the topic too much. I do want to get back to your escape. But you said something that caught my attention. You said that everyone had to work. It was mandatory. So
Correct.
was there such a thing as a stay-at-home mom?
No.
No stay-at-home mothers.
If you had a child, you could stay home until the child was to first grade.
First grade.
But if you had someone who would pay your bills, you were not allowed. You had to work. and if you didn't work, you would go to jail.
So that's how they propagandized the kids. That's how they got them in the kindergarten that taught them about the Soviet Union and their debt of gratitude to Lenin.
Correct. And even
Really?
if you stayed home, they did pay a small amount of money for your child, but you wouldn't survive to stay home. Many women didn't. They went to work as soon as they could. But mandatory work, of course, because we're going back to everything, every business is owned by government. So when you work, you're doing what? You're paying taxes.
It sounds like government was trying not only to subvert God and say, you don't need God, don't believe in God, be an atheist and believe in communism. It sounds like government was also trying to replace the family. You don't need to educate your kids. You have no right to educate your kids. Give them to us. We'll handle that.
Correct.
A total takeover of everything down to the most basic fundamental rights.
Well, they also decided what school your child will go, and that was determined whether you're a member of a party,
So the members of the Communist Party got to go to the good schools, I would assume.
pretty much.
Yeah. And I remember you told me your father was not part of the Communist Party.
He was not, because he was interrogated a couple times,
Right.
and we already had that scratch on the wall. But my parents would probably never even join because of the disagreement they had about the system. But
Yeah.
they never did anything about it.
So you knew you needed to leave. You said in part because your daughter had medical issues with her eyes. She couldn't get the right care. Whose idea was it to leave in the first place, and how did that planning go?
I was very frustrated already. Well, there was another, I couldn't go to school I wanted to go to because I love languages. I speak 5 languages.
Wow.
And I wanted to go to school and study languages, and I wanted to travel. I read a book about one traveler, Czechoslovakian traveler. He wrote several books about going to New Guinea and study all them cannibals. And I was, as a teenager, I read all his books, and I wanted to be something like that.
You wanted to
Or-
go study the cannibals.
I don't know, or maybe elephants. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to do, and I was not allowed to go to that school.
Because you weren't a communist.
Correct.
So they were going to withhold that from you. So
They-
you felt like you needed to leave.
Well, it was frustrating because I ended up in statistics. Because
Yeah.
you had to work. And so my mom worked for a certain company, and she said, "Oh, they have a statistics. You want to do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah. I mean, what
Yeah.
else is there?"
On pain of going to jail, I guess I'll
yeah,
take the job.
yeah. And so it was really boring, and I'm not a boring
Yeah.
kind of. I was very driven. I wanted to change the world. To this day, I would love to.
Yeah.
And so it was not for me, but
You want the freedom.
correct.
You have an American flag pin on your shirt. You're clearly
do.
very proud to be an American.
I am very proud to be American.
So walk me through the process, because you're here now, but as at this point in the story, you're deep in communist territory. How did you get out? Because I'm assuming they wouldn't have allowed you to. You just said, "Hey, I'd like to leave."
We were not allowed to travel. You had
Yeah, I
to,
figured.
even to Eastern countries, you had to be approved. And so we heard from some people that in 1968, a lot of people left the country. So you always knew somebody who has somebody out in the West world.
Yeah.
And they start to talk about, what they do, or how Western world has a free speech and how you can have a business. And so it was very appealing. And I was so frustrated already. And so one day I just came home and I said, I think we just need to go. We need to see if we can take our chance on a free country. And perhaps we can make a better future for our daughter.
How did you
And
manage to get across the border?
So my company organized a trip to Yugoslavia. And they must have made a mistake because they usually didn't let a whole family to travel outside country. But they let us go with our daughter. And so we took advantage of it. We went to Yugoslavia, and the tour guide or the guide took our passports, and we were not, this way they kind of thought that
Right.
they're not going to go anywhere without passport. Well, one day we just came to the tour guide and we said, "Oh, we have to go to town. We want to see the town, and we just want the passports for a couple hours. We'll be right back." And they were so naive. They gave it to us, and We already had tickets to uh, travel to Vienna on a train,
Austria.
Austria.
Okay.
They had a camp for refugees. I think it was kind of sponsored and created by I think it was 1980 Refugee Act.
Okay.
And so it was American sponsored, but there were also Australia, Canada, and South Africa
Okay. So like a Western coalition of countries set up a camp to
for
help
refugees.
refugees from Czechoslovakia and other countries too, or just
From
Czechoslovakia?
anybody who wants to escape
Okay.
communism
Wow.
or oppression.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so you went there.
So we kind of knew it exists. We found out. And so, but we couldn't tell. The worst part was we couldn't tell our parents that we're never coming back
Mm.
or our friends, because if the word got out, oh, that we would be in big trouble.
I bet.
And so we went on a train to Vienna. But of course, by the time we got to Vienna border, we didn't have visa, so they told us no, nicht. So they took us off the train,
Mm.
and we ran into this older man, and he told us, well, down the road about 2 miles or so, if you walk, that's where everybody crosses the border, because there was no wall or fences there. And so we were like, well, I guess we're going to try. And so we did that with suitcase and a 2-year-old, and
Mm.
we just walked through the woods, and we could hear the dogs. The man told us usually they travel, it takes about 20 minutes.
So it wasn't totally unsecured, like they were trying to
No,
stop you from
no.
getting across.
This was a Yugoslavian-Austrian border.
Mm.
Yugoslavia was kind of like an independent at the time,
Okay.
and Austria was Western. Well, they were also kind of like independent, but they were more Western.
Yeah.
And so they had guards, but it was not as extreme. So he told us it was about 20 minutes. They go one way and then they come back. And so we kind of tried to time it.
What was that like with a
To go.
2-year-old? I mean, 2-year-olds are unpredictable. They cry. I mean, were you concerned
Yeah.
about your cover getting blown?
She was crying,
No,
yeah, but you just go.
Yeah.
And once you're on a Austrian territory, you're good to go, And so there was like a little cottage, and I saw the light is on, so we knocked, and of course the man didn't open, and I heard them over the door speaking German, and I answered in German that we're looking for, asylum,
Yeah.
and he called the police. So the so the police came there, and they took us for questioning. They kept us for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was no big deal. I think they just checked if we need to be, if we're running from law.
So it sounds like it wasn't a complete like open border scenario. It sounds like they were like vetting people, and then they sent you to the refugee camp. Is that how that worked?
Well, yeah, they wanted to make sure you're not wanted for murder
Right.
or something
I mean,
like
that's
that.
fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, and then they asked us if we have money. We had a little bit of money with us, so we bought. They helped us buy a ticket. We paid, but they helped us buy a ticket to Vienna from the border, and gave us address where the camp is.
Hmm.
And so we went there. There was like a big gate. We got to the gate, and we told the person at the gate that we're looking for asylum, and they just opened the gate and
What kind of
started
camp
the
was this?
process.
Was this like a school that they converted it, or a hotel, or what's this camp?
It was a large building. It looked like a jail kind of
Okay.
building, and during war, I think it was like a training facility for uh, Nazis or German soldiers or something
Wow.
like that. And then, of course, after the war, it became another training facility, and then eventually they turned it into this camp.
How were the conditions in there?
Awful.
Awful.
But you don't think of. I was 22. We
Yeah.
didn't think about it. Now my daughter, that was a little challenging, and
Yeah.
so once we got in, we were in a quarantine. So they put us in a room of 300 people or so, because it was June 1985, and a lot of people. Summertime was, I guess, the most crowd that was
Yeah.
heading that way. And so it was 300 people in one room, and the bunks were 3-level bunks, and you slept next to the guys from Albania or something like
Sounds like
that.
there's very little privacy.
It was no privacy whatsoever, and it was very chaotic, loud, uh, uncomfortable. And then you felt like you're in prison because
Yeah.
only on Friday they would take like 10 women with their children to go to another floor to take a shower.
How often was this?
Every Friday.
Every Friday, once a week showers.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then there was a bathroom in a hallway in that particular, because you couldn't leave that room, but there was a hallway where you could walk. So it was extremely loud because that's where the kids would play.
Yeah.
And there was a bathroom there, but no showers. But
Hmm.
oh, it was.
How long were you there?
We were there almost 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
And then where did they put you from there?
After that, we were vetted very severely.
Okay. What's the vetting process like?
The vetting process was we had to give them all our information.
Hmm.
And I think that's why it took so long. And they're looking whether you need to be sent back to your country for, again, escaping from law. And at the time, my husband, in Czechoslovakia, it was mandatory to serve for every boy that finished school. They had to mandatory serve in the army for 2 years. And he was stationed in Uzbekistan, where they tested missiles. And so I think when they vetted him or us, they didn't know if he's not a spy or so. It took a little longer for us.
Because of his former job.
Correct.
Okay. Were you worried that they might send you back?
I don't think I was worried about that.
You were pretty confident in the process.
Well, I would have followed them.
Yeah. But did people?
But no.
Some people did get sent back though.
Yeah, if you escape, there were a couple guys they sent back, extradited or whatever you call them, because they were escaping from murdering someone or something from law. Yeah.
Oh, I wish we applied some of that same rigor here.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I think sometimes we just open up our borders and just try to let people through. But at
Yeah.
least back then they were like, okay, if you're a murderer, maybe we're not going to let you through and give you a free cell phone.
Right, right.
Do you draw comparisons between the migrant crisis that we have today in Europe and in the United States? Because as you're speaking, a lot of the migrant camps, the vetting and the interviews are kind of reminiscent of what we have going on today. And I can already hear the liberals being like, see, we let him in when they were fleeing from communism. Why can't we just let him in from the Muslim countries and from Northern Africa or from Mexico? What would be your response to that?
I think there's a huge difference. And I think I left communist country, but I didn't come to United States to make it a communist country. What I see happening right now with people coming through our southern border, or the ones that are already here and got here maybe earlier, they're trying to change our country to the country they left. How does that make sense?
Well, it seems like if you didn't like the country you came from, maybe you shouldn't try to make
You
the place
shouldn't
you're
leave.
arriving into the place you
Right.
left. Right. Okay.
So that's what I think. I didn't come here to, oh, well, in communism, this is what we did. Why don't we do that here? I wouldn't dare do that. I tried to, first of all, I didn't speak any English when I got here. And that was my priority. I need to speak the language where I live. I don't see that here today either.
So you respected the language and culture and traditions of the country you wanted to go to.
Correct.
You assimilated.
Correct.
Whereas today, we don't exactly see that.
And another difference, Tyler, we had some traditions during Easter or Christmas. I wanted to learn the traditions here. And there's a difference in, say, Christmas. In Czechoslovakia, we celebrated the 24th. That's when we had a big dinner, but we didn't eat all day. We were fasting, and then there was 9 types of meat for dinner, and it was a big feast for dinner. And after dinner, we gave the children their presents. But I'm in the United States now, and I have a little daughter, and she's going to be with her peers. I need to learn the tradition here. Now, we can practice both, right? I can practice the Czechoslovakian way to keep her in where she came from
Mhm.
because she was born there, but I'm certainly going to obey or learn what I'm doing here.
Right. Well, I'll point out also that regardless of whether you're doing it with 9 meats or it's the 12 days of Christmas or presents in morning or evening, you were still celebrating Christmas.
Correct.
It's not as if in Czechoslovakia they celebrate Ramadan and whatever else they're celebrating in some of these other countries. Um, you're still celebrating Christmas. It almost seems to me like Czechoslovakia, despite the fact that it was maybe referred to as an Eastern Bloc country or it was under, at least temporarily, communist rule, it was still a Western country that came from a lot of the same stock and had a lot of the same traditions. I mean, you're
Yeah.
still, even under communist rule, attempted atheist brainwashing, you're still celebrating Christmas. And you're still celebrating Easter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the lesson for us? I mean, you lived in a communist regime. You saw the Soviets invade. What do we need to do to stave this off? How do we prevent something like that from happening here?
I think what I'm trying to do today is taking advantage of free speech.
Hmm.
I would like for people to hear what I lived, not what I heard, not what I read somewhere. I lived there for 22 years and it's real. And when I hear proposals for Medicare for all, it scares the heck out of me because Medicare for all, we have a Medicare now for people over 65. Imagine if Medicare for all includes babies and anybody until they die. For all 365 million people,
Hmm.
Medicare for all, where is that money going to come from?
Probably from your pocket. Probably from my pocket.
From your pocket and my
Yeah.
pocket. I heard there is a 200 trillion proposal for Medicare for all.
That's my money and your money.
That
That's the
is our
listener's money.
money
Yeah.
times two because there's no way they can accommodate everyone.
Right.
Babies, surgeries, and as you get older, you need more surgeries. People will get denied surgery. People will die sooner. People will, I mean, you see it now already, and this is again going back to communism. You will wait for a specialist for 2 to 3 months,
Right.
and I, that's not something we should be heading to.
Yeah. Well, what they say is when you make everyone a winner, there really are no winners. Everyone's
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah,
equally a loser. And it seems to me that what you experienced is when you take away the incentive, you take away the means of production, and you just give it all to the government, and then they dole it out. You create an incentive for people to try to get ahead for themselves, not the least of which are the people who are administering the government, because they dig in pretty deep. I'm guessing
yeah,
they weren't struggling too much.
yeah.
It seems like communism doesn't really get rid of social classes and bring equality. It just makes a new social class.
Correct.
And now instead of the merchants who are in charge, it's the government. And
Yes,
they're driving the Rolls Royce.
yes, they are.
Yeah.
Only them, though. And so I guess if I had to send out a message is for our young people to realize that there's no such a thing like free. Nothing is free. You can't get free buses because somebody has to pay for it. For now, it's your parents, but once you start working, it will be you too.
Hmm.
And so that applies for everything that they claim may be free or affordable. Affordable sounds great. Everything sounds good when you say free, affordable, uh, you know, affordable housing. Well, who's going to pay for it? Affordable housing, I lived in one. There were no repairs. There was long wait for repairs, if anything. The facade of the, houses was peeling off. Everything looked gray and sad. You couldn't do any improvements to apartment that you rented because it was not approved by the government.
Hmm.
And you couldn't even move, Tyler. If you wanted to move, you needed a special approval from your city hall or something like
That sounds
that.
like a red tape nightmare. It seems like
is.
they take everything from you. They take
Correct.
your religion, they take your family, and even your agency to just move.
Yeah.
Animals, dumb
Yes.
animals, have the ability in the wild to move where they please, and yet under
Yeah.
communism, they take even that from you.
And there were extreme restrictions. You wanted to move, you had to apply if you can move. Once you were approved to move, if you had one child, you cannot go to 3-bedroom apartment.
Mm.
You have one child, you get a 1 or 2 max bedroom apartment, and that's it. What do you need 3-bedroom apartment for? You want a gym in your spare bedroom? I don't think so.
Yeah. It sounds like there's no such thing as a free lunch. And if I've learned something from this interview, I've learned a lot of things. But it sounds like a big takeaway that you want to leave people with is don't believe the guys who tell you that if you just vote for me, I'll make all your dreams come true. You will have bounty from the heavens and everything will be free, because that's a trick. It's the oldest trick in the book, and you have seen it firsthand. And it's misery, it's oppression, it's a loss of freedom. And you would rather be free yourself, free as a human being, than you would like to have free healthcare and free
Yes.
housing.
Yes.
Is that correct?
If you want to be free, you go out there and you fight for it and you make it yourself.
Lenka, I've loved this conversation. Thank you so
It
much.
was a great conversation. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.